Hi everyone, it's Hans here, the founder of Cappuccino, and welcome to this latest episode of Flat Whites and Insights, a podcast created to allow a space for open, honest and vulnerable conversations with real people, all over a beautiful cup of coffee. We're here in my home, so I'll be providing the flat whites, and my guests, they'll be providing the insights. So grab a coffee for yourselves, take a moment, and I hope you enjoy this latest conversation. Thank you, take care, and enjoy. Josh, hi.
Hey Hans, how are you?
Yeah, really well, thank you. No, thank you for
Good.
taking the time to come on, join me on
My absolute pleasure.
Flat Whites and
I hope.
Insights.
I don't know how it's going to go.
Yeah, no, we'll see what you're saying come the end. But no, I really appreciate it. You're someone who I think got to know through Instagram, as with a lot of people.
Yeah,
in the
absolutely.
coffee
Yeah.
industry. It's mad. But for those who don't know who you are you like to give a brief introduction, and obviously we can touch on that more as we go.
Yeah. So my name's Josh. I live in the Midlands in Leicester. I've been in coffee for about nearly 10 years. I've lived in three places in my life for a third of my life each. So I was born in Hemel Hempstead in Hertfordshire, and then I moved to Essex, and then I moved up to Leicester, and I've done sort of a third of my life in each. So I have a very mixed accent, which I can't quite place myself, but there we go.
Amazing. No, and so you mentioned there coffee for about 10 years. So
that's right.
Fairly significant part of your life, and that is your full-time kind of work, I believe.
I tend to say, it depends who I'm talking to, but I tend to say I either work in coffee, but mainly I work in hospitality. So I've worked in hospitality since probably about the age of 14, 15. And that's pretty much all I've ever done. I took a little break to do a degree in music technology, and then went into working for a cafe, stayed there for 7 years, and basically just fell deep down the rabbit hole of coffee and all that stuff. So and here we are at the other end.
Here we are. I know, and I feel like I'm a bit later, like earlier on my journey, but I'm definitely falling deeper and deeper into that kind of rabbit hole.
Oh goodness me, I know, yeah.
And it's,
I feel like I'm early on my journey, to be fair. But yeah,
I think
who knows?
That's what's great. And everyone I speak to, they say what they love about the coffee industry is that you feel like there's always more to learn.
Or 100%.
Or people to meet, and
it's
something that you'll never kind of complete.
You'll never plumb the depths. Yeah, no, completely. And it's this, I don't know, this is going to be a terrible, my terrible memory coming out here, but I'm sure there's this idea of like the bell curve of knowledge, or like where basically at the beginning you know nothing, but you think you know everything. And then as you climb, you know everything, and there's a short period where you're like, I know a lot, and then you tip over that edge, and you go, wow, and you actually know a lot, but you think you know nothing, or you become aware that you know nothing. So I think I'm just there.
Okay,
knowing that there's a lot I don't know. So,
there's a lot more to explore. There's a lot more to explore.
Exactly.
So part of the reason I wanted to get you on is I remember when I kind of first met you. It was at a London Coffee Festival.
Yes, we made espresso martinis together.
We did.
It was awesome. I loved it.
There's commentary of you commenting on one of my pours, because I told you it was going to be the one, and it was the one.
And it was.
You told me.
You were so pleased with that. Yeah. Oh man, that was the most chaotic day I think I've ever had. It was I was never quite sure what was going on, and then I didn't quite know where we were going for this thing with a company we worked with, and nobody really told us where we were going. I don't know if you had the same experience.
Yeah, but we were just waiting, and then I think I saw the a familiar face of, I say familiar face, like it was the first time I'd met him, but
Yeah, yeah,
pirate barista, so Rob,
yeah,
who's also been on my podcast.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, and I remember because he was like, "Oh, cappuccino." I was like, "Pirate barista." We didn't know each other's names at that point. We just knew
Is
our Instagram
that?
handles.
I think that was the time when I had been doing stuff on Instagram for a while, and then that was the first time like a lot of us met in person,
Yeah.
and I'm one of those people who put my face on Instagram right from the start, and like
Yes. Yeah.
people. So I guess similar to you.
Yeah, similar. Because obviously, I initially was just going to be reviewing cafes, just in Oxford.
Oh
So
yeah, of
it's
course.
coming up to 5 years now, actually. Yeah, so February
Yeah, wow.
2019. So which is scary when I think of that. So
Yeah, that's mad.
initially, I didn't have my face to it. It was and obviously the nature of my page, a lot of kind of the mental health space. So
Hmm.
I was off work. I was in a bit of a slump. Um, yeah, was signed off and needed to just something to like get me out of the house, feel like a purpose. So
Mm.
I was just Oxford's got some incredible coffee shops,
Oh, it
amazing
does.
like
I
baristas and
love
people
Oxford.
met from Oxford. And so at first it was just reviewing cafes, and then
Mm.
I kind of did a few posts about, well, this is why I'm doing this, and those seemed to get traction. And people were
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah,
oh, it's cool that someone's talking about mental health. Like initially, I didn't put my face to it because there was actually, to be honest, a bit of shame because I was like, oh my god,
yeah,
like
yeah.
people I went to school with or people who know me as what I was doing before I had my breakdown might be like, hang on a minute, he's he's not who he said he was going to be. But then
Mm.
once I did put my face to it, it's amazing and it just adds so much, I think, value to people who kind of follow or interact because it just feels a bit more real. But no, yeah, I think
Oh
definitely
man,
for
yeah.
yourself as well. Kind of done a bit of like some videos, and yeah, your face was to it. So, but
Yeah, so
yes,
when
what you were going to kind of say was there's
well, when a
people
load of
who
people
yeah,
met, yeah, we like a lot of people at that event came up to me and were like, I'd say a lot of people. That sounds like I had whatever. A lot of my connections who I was
yeah,
friends with online came up and said, "Oh, hey man,"
yeah.
like, "Hi there."
You just
And
didn't know,
also
yeah,
the other thing I did quite deliberately was I just had my name as my username. So like
yes, yeah,
everyone else had these like you say about Pirate Barista or like our friend Phil,
yes,
who
yeah.
by the way is one of my oldest friends in the
Mm.
world.
Yeah,
I've
because
known
that
him
was
since
such
I
a
was
small
11.
world moment when I think he probably introduced me to you, to be fair.
Yeah,
So,
maybe. Yeah.
because we used to work together
Oh, of course he
before
did. Yeah,
he went into the world of coffee and I've gone into the world of football, but we worked together in
absolutely.
charity for a charity, and
Yeah.
I never
So
knew him
he
since coffee. He kept
yeah, but
that.
he was called Phil the Beans on
Yes,
Instagram.
which sounds funny when
Uh,
you say it out.
which I think is jokes. But anyway, so I had my name, just Josh Shirtcliffe, as my thing, and there were lots of times when I was tempted to be like Barista Josh or something like that, and I just thought, nah, there's no point for me.
Yeah,
So my face and my name were just me, and so a bunch of people kind of knew who I was or recognized me or were
yeah.
like, oh, I saw that funny video you did. And I, to my shame, just had no idea who they were. So, but
Well,
I
a lot of
love
people,
the
and it's
experience.
great when they look like all the pores and stuff, but you don't see the face behind them. So there are
Mm,
a few people there, and I know
yeah,
so James Farm Boy Bruce. I don't know if you'd have interacted with him. I think we met the
yeah,
coffee festival
maybe.
after because I think the year
Okay.
after I think caught up with you again, and
Yeah,
I
yeah,
might see you
yeah,
in
yeah.
April again. It's our annual our annual catch up if you're going to be there
Yeah,
this
our
year.
annual catch up. Yeah, I'm hoping to go. Although opening it, we'll come on to this in a minute. But opening a
Yeah,
cafe in March and then going to a coffee festival in April.
mm,
But the plan is to be there, but we'll see.
we'll
We'll see.
see. Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll see.
When's this coming out? Will it
This,
be
oh, it will be coming out. Um,
before April?
yes, oh, definitely before April.
Oh, there you go. All
It'll
right. Well,
be
if anyone's at London Coffee Festival, come and see me. I'll probably be wearing this hat.
yeah. Well, everyone knows your name and your face, so you'll
There
be.
you go.
So,
I wouldn't say everyone.
I know. But no, and yeah. Let's move on to the cafe. How's
Okay.
that
Yeah, yeah.
going? And where is it? What's it called? And how's it been?
Oh
Kind of.
my goodness. So, well, to give you a bit of context, so I used to run a cafe in Leicester. I was there for 7 years, which is a long stint in a cafe, and then I moved on to another place. Had a very very short time in another job, and then went kind of freelance for a while, I guess. So I was working part time for Costa Coffee, and then just as a barista, which for me, one, jumping into a chain cafe, I really enjoyed. I just loved seeing how the systems worked and how just how efficient it was. I remember this conversation I had with my boss, and we used to talk about staff percentages. I don't know if it's the same in like in the football world or how it all works, but in hospitality, generally the general rule is you want about a 30% staff cost, like labor cost to your takings. I've got these lovely flowers in the corner. We were like in the cafe I previously ran. We just were always struggling to hit that. That it was an independent place, just a one-off, and it always felt like we were just struggling to hit that mark. And then I went to Costa and I was like, so what kind of staff percentage do you work at? And I just remember him being like, well, we aim for 20, but we often hit like 12. It's like, what? But you know what was crazy? It didn't feel really busy. Well, it felt busy, but it didn't feel
in
like
terms
I
of,
was.
you didn't feel stretched, you didn't feel off your feet, and you
No.
didn't feel like it was a bad place to work in terms of
No.
And
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if I got lucky. I know some people's experiences of chain coffee shops or whatever aren't as good, but I just loved it. I had a really great team. I wasn't managing anybody. That was a real blessing. My wife says of that time, it was the first time I got my husband back for a while, and I just settled into this really great routine. I was only working part-time, but I would get there super early in the morning. It was a beautiful drive out from Leicester to a place called Lutterworth, and it was so built on regulars, so like you pretty much knew everyone's drinks, and it was great from that perspective. I was just given tasks to do and I just did them, and I didn't have to think about any of the kind of bigger picture stuff. And then my break every day, I would go over to a sandwich shop called, I want to say Flacky's. It's like one of those classic village sandwich shops where there's just trays of ingredients, a bit like Subway but better. And you just
a wholesome Subway.
and they just shove everything in there. And then I'd go and sit in like a little memorial garden under a cover. And even in the middle of winter, I would just wrap myself up in my coat. And I remember all my colleagues being like, why'd you go outside? It's freezing out there. And I'm like, well, one, because it just gives me some headspace. But also, I really enjoy it. Just sitting there with my sandwich, half an hour, just the stillness. And then alongside that, I was doing some freelance work. So I was, I've completely gone off topic here about the cafe.
It's fine. It's
leading in.
You're building up. You're building up to it.
I'm building up to land the plane. A crash landing. Hopefully not crash landing. And what was I saying? Was working freelance as well. So I was doing some like consultancy, some design work, some training work for some coffee companies and stuff like that, which I really enjoyed. I am not really a lone worker, so I found that challenging. I'm the kind of person who basically needs. The ideal situation is that someone tells me where I need to be at what time and who I'm meeting and all that stuff, and then I'm there. Like I can.
So you need a PA. Is that what you're saying?
I basically need a PA. Yeah.
No, but I know what you mean though. In terms of once if there's a task you're set to do, or once you're in it and you know what you're doing, you'll be there. You'll enjoy it and you'll do a good job. But it's almost that. I guess it can be challenging that almost when you've not got someone to challenge you, or those little reminders, or maybe that structure is harder when you're just a freelancer working by yourself, because it's like it's all down to you. So you can be you've got a kind of, there's freedom in that, but there's also a lot of responsibility and that flip side of it, I guess.
Yes, yeah. I'll come back to thing. Just remind me to mention the working genius, because that's really changed my perspective on my own thinking. So I'll come back to that in a second.
Is that a book, or is that a?
Working Genius is a book. There's a podcast. It's it's a kind of, do you know the Myers-Briggs?
Yes.
Like personality types.
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
like that. It's like that, but specifically for work. But it's
Okay.
been really impactful on me and how I kind of think about work.
Cool. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. We'll
but
maybe
yeah,
flip back to
we'll
that
we'll
later.
we'll come back to that. Can you edit this podcast? Do you flip things around, or do you just let it roll?
No, we just let it run. It's
Oh
a
goodness me, I'm
conversation.
so sorry.
So they get the real conversation we're having. So,
Yeah. Can you tell I'm a verbal processor? I don't. Some people think and then they say what they thought. I just think as I speak. Yep. But here we are. So after that, I was offered a job with Outpost Coffee Roasters. So that was incredible. Outpost are a coffee roaster, a small coffee roaster based in Nottingham.
Yeah.
And I went in just after that Christmas, and it was a completely different ballgame. Working for a coffee roaster, so I was the head of wholesale there. So I remember having a week of like handover with the person who did it previously, who's one of my really good friends in coffee, called Rosie. She works for La Marzocco now, the coffee machine manufacturer. And took over from her. We had like a week together of handover, and we just went on road trips and visited customers. And I was like, wow, do I get to do this as a job and just go and drink coffee? And that is literally what it was. Well, no, not quite. I mean, it was a bit a bit of sales, bit of managing customers and that kind of stuff. But small team, really cool working environment. Like, got to drink so much coffee, learned an unbelievable amount about coffee during those 2 years I was there. And yeah, just had a brilliant time and drunk a whole lot of coffee. Like a normal day for me would be picking a city, going and visiting that city, but because it's too far to just do like a 2-hour trip, I would want to make the most of it. So I would go into London or Bath or wherever.
So you mean make a day of it, find a nice cafe to go to, or
well, because I was essentially like doing sales, I'd want to make the most of visiting all the top cafes and giving them samples, right? But if you're the coffee guy going into a cafe and you don't have a coffee, it's a bit like it's a bit uncool. So I'd end up drinking like 6, 7, 8 coffees in a day because you'd just be jumping between cafes. And so yeah, tell you what, they were some shaky days. You get to the end, you're like, why am I scared about everything?
That'll be it.
That'll be it. You get into the last one, you're like, can I just please have a hot chocolate peppermint tea?
My first ever London Coffee Festival experience. I think I got a bit overexcited because I was very new into coffee at that time, and I've never worked in coffee. Still to this day, it's just something that I've done from home barista, podcaster. Don't know what I'd call myself now.
Aficionado. Yeah, I know what you mean.
We'll go with that. But yeah,
all round great guy. There we go.
But I remember though, because people were like, "Oh, what would you like? What coffee would you like?" And I was going like, "Well, my favorite coffee is a flat white." So I was having a flat white from like each place that I was getting coffees from. And they got to about lunchtime, and I was like, well, "I need to slow down."
I've been there, man. It's funny because I did the same at a London Coffee Festival I went to. The first one I ever did, I was exhibiting, so I didn't actually get to try much coffee. And then the first one I went to, I actually went on my own when I was freelancing, I think. I'd been a few times with groups, and when you're with a group, you've got kind of usually a specific purpose for being there. But I was on my own, so all I had to do was just go and chat and build community and talk. And I drank a good chunk of coffee and not much food. And I remember speaking to someone and just thinking, I'm gonna pass out. I need to leave this conversation. So I was like, I'm really sorry, I need to go. And then a friend of mine, Ashifa, who works for Well Grounded in London, she saw me and was like, Josh, how are you doing? And I said, Ashifa, I need to go outside. I'm gonna pass out. And she was like, don't worry. And she opened her bag and she pulled out a bunch of bananas. She was like, you need this.
That wasn't her first rodeo, was it?
She's brilliant. And she gave me this, she gave me a banana, and it just solved the problem. So anyway, 2 years at Outpost. 2 years at Outpost.
Yeah.
And then about 5 or 6, maybe 7 people in my community in Leicester told me about this job opportunity. And I'd been thinking for a little while about getting back into the kind of front of house, because I think that's where I really thrive. Like I'm a people person.
Yeah.
The nature of my job at Outpost was primarily, while there was some networking with folks, it was primarily working within the industry and with business owners. So obviously most of our customers were cafe owners themselves.
Yeah.
And some elements of working with business owners I just really struggle with, and I think I thrive when I'm with the public and when I can give when I can. This is going to sound weird, but when I'm the one kind of controlling the feel of a place and the environment, and I don't mean that in a controlling way. I more mean that in if somebody comes to your home and you have the power, I guess, to
you're like the
offer.
host.
You're hosting.
And it's particularly with coffee and like specialist coffee shops and a nice cafe is a lot of the time people will go back to somewhere. Yes, obviously the coffee's got to be of a good quality and they'll like the coffee, but it's how the experience makes them feel. And so I've had someone come on my podcast. His name is James and he owns Cooper's Coffee. They're based in Marlow. It's like Buckinghamshire way near me. And he said something which I thought was really cool, and it was, no matter how anyone is feeling, I want them to leave my cafe feeling that little bit brighter and a little bit better than they did before they came in.
That's good.
Yeah. And I think that's almost kind of what you're saying about that's maybe what you don't get with the business owners, because it can feel a bit corporate and you're trying to thrash out.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I had some brilliant relationships with business owners. Like they're so lovely. But also there's people who are trying to make money and doing their thing, and sometimes it can be quite transactional, or they're the ones telling you, I need this, I need that, and whatever. And it's all good. I think what I feel called to, I suppose, is to create those experiences, to offer hospitality, to create teams who can do that as well. So I've been thinking about it for a while, about going back into that kind of world. But it's a tough one because in the Midlands, and Leicester particularly, like we're pretty tied to Leicester for loads of reasons, but in Leicester, there's not all that much going on in terms of hospitality that is, like, I've worked with or in a lot of the spots, and there's not loads going on, particularly for someone who's been in the industry for a long time. So there wasn't really anything that came up. So anyway, I just cracked on, and I thought about going into machinery sales or training. Looked at a few things there, but in the end, this opportunity came up. I heard about it, and I heard that it was the big Anglican church in a village called Thurmby were the kind of they were the ones launching the project. Okay. I heard it was in a park, like a play park, and I heard it was a non-profit cafe.
Yeah.
And those three things, one from my own experience of visiting places, but also from working for a coffee roaster in the industry, those three things don't often suggest the highest quality or the most thought through approach, or often they're run on really well-meaning and wonderful people, like volunteers, but they kind of can miss the mark on some things, or there's not much money available really. So everything is done quite very, very much on a budget, but almost to the point where it's hard to offer real good quality.
Yeah.
So I'll be honest, I kind of, when people told me about it, I was like, I'm not really sure that's for me. Would I end up just getting frustrated? Anyway, time went by. They reopened applications. Some more people told me about it. And I think the third time round, somebody messaged me on Facebook or something and said, hey, man, I really think you should look at this job. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to go speak to them, going to go meet them, right?
Yeah.
So I went and met one of the directors, and I was just blown away. Like
Yeah.
the intentionality behind the project, the eye on like quality, the availability of funds through grants and gifts, and also the way that in that conversation it was like, we're looking for somebody who really comes with the experience but also gets the vision of what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
So so I went away and thought very, very hard about it, and applied, right? So and ended up getting the job as cafe manager, and then joined the team of directors as well. So there's 6 of us.
Oh, nice.
It's as I say, it's a non-profit charitable organization. So none of us are taking a cut. But yeah, I jumped in. So that was in September, and the idea behind it is that it is a community cafe. It was originally called the Hub, but every possible church or charity cafe is called the Hub in the country, so they changed that.
Yeah. I say it's not, it doesn't tell you anything about it really.
Yeah,
or
sure.
it doesn't feel unique.
Yeah, that's right. So
No
so they
disrespect
changed
to
it.
anyone who works anywhere called the Hub who's listening.
It's all right.
Sure, they're lovely.
My mum runs a cafe called the Hub, so it's all good. I didn't want to have a cafe the same name. No, I'm joking. But so the name then became Cafe 55, right? Which comes from a biblical text in scriptures, which is Isaiah chapter 55, which says, "Come, all you who are thirsty, come to the waters," right? In other words, it's about hospitality, it's about welcome, it doesn't matter who you are or your background or where you've come from, you are completely welcome, and we're not going to turn anyone away, right? That's the idea. And then the next bit of the passage says, and you who have no money, come buy and eat. We've kind of skipped that bit of the thing because people will have to pay, sadly. But so that's where the name comes from, Cafe 55.
No, I love that, and it's something. It's interesting you've touched on that, because something I potentially was going to ask you about as well was your faith. So
yeah, sure, absolutely, always happy to talk.
So I'm not religious myself. I would say I'm spiritual more so since I've had my breakdown, and I kind of realized I was so focused on achievement, or so focused on what I was doing, or maybe how people saw me, rather than actually how I was feeling, or feeling at peace and understanding things. So and I've got a few friends who are religious, and so is that something that's been a constant for you throughout your life? It's just kind of
for sure. So yeah, absolutely. So I was really I would say fortunate. I was brought up in a wonderful home. Like, both my parents are Christians, and the reason we moved over to Essex is my dad became a pastor, right?
Okay.
And he used to work for the BBC in children's education and graphic design, right? So a little interesting fact about me: I was one of the first children in the world to watch the Tweenies. If anyone knows the Tweenies,
Was one of them Milo? Am I thinking
Milo?
Right? Milo.
Yeah, Milo, Jake.
I'm thinking of the right show. Yeah.
Bella, another one. But yeah, I just remember him. He brought home this tape from a VHS tape from work one day, and he said, "Oh, I've been asked to show this to my children so that they can give feedback." And it was like half an episode, and it like went to the fuzzy black and white at the end. So yeah, I didn't realize at the time that it wasn't a TV show that existed yet. So there you go.
There you go.
Anyway,
that's cool.
Yeah. So yeah, I was kind of always brought up in that environment, and then but I don't think it ever really rung true with me, and I think really I in a lot of ways I just did what I knew I was supposed to do because I was in a Christian family. You know, we were part of a church. I was like, following the rules and pretending I was all good, and that was fine. And then and then the rubber really hit the road when my dad left the BBC. He went to Bible college right in London, and
Yeah.
then a couple of years later, he was searching for jobs as a pastor or a minister of a church. Right, so he found one in Colchester in Essex, where they still live, and we upsticked and moved over there, right? So I was just going into year 8, so I was probably 12 years old. So
How was that at the time? What was your kind of
yeah.
initial feeling? Because obviously maybe you just kind of joined a secondary school and maybe made a new set of friends and having
Yeah.
to move. Or do you remember it being like a difficult
Do you know what?
or more exciting or with the move?
In my head, I remember it being more exciting than it was difficult. The thing that really scared me, to be honest, was having to turn up to a new school in year 8.
Yeah.
And I still, to this day, remember my first day and walking into my first classroom and just everyone being like, who's this new kid who's just joined our class? And having to explain to people why we'd moved. And to tell, I was almost had this like slight shame about the fact that my dad was my dad's a pastor kind of thing. Like, I always thought it was a bit weird. And I remember, actually it was in year 7, just before we moved, there was another like really poignant moment that I remember where, and I don't know if this is in any way an appropriate thing for a teacher to do, but I remember we were in an RE. Do you call it RE or RS?
Yeah. RE, we have religious education.
Religious
Some
education,
people might say
right?
religious studies. So yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So year 7, one of the first classes we were in, right? And my teacher stood up and he said to our class, okay, if you believe in God, go and stand in that corner of the room. If you're not sure, go there. And if you are an atheist, go over there. And no one really knew me at the school, and I remember this guy. I won't say his name, but he literally stood up, stormed to the atheist corner, and sat down with his arms crossed. Was like, definitely. And I'm like, dude, you're in year 7.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is basically the moment where I either go, yeah, I believe in God, or I identify as a Christian, or I go in the middle. Unfortunately, for me at the time, the teaching assistant in the class went to my church.
Okay.
So there was there was tension. I was like, oh no, what do I do? So I went over to the believe section, and I just remember for those years feeling quite embarrassed about it, and just thinking, do people think it's weird or whatever? And anyway, over the next few years, I really went on a journey of my own, and I used to go to these summer camps, like sports camps in Brecon in Wales. If you've ever been to Brecon, it's the most beautiful place.
Yes, yeah,
and
really nice, really nice.
Yeah, and they were really good opportunities to come away from my little bubble where everyone knew me, and I was kind of just had to exist in this world where, like, my parents might think I was one thing, on my own I was another thing, my friends thought I was another thing, and just really think about it for myself. And I remember just being so struck by, like, year after year, by how much I was loved, and how I didn't always get it right, and the impact as well on older Christians that I saw that Jesus had on their lives. And I just went through a real journey of like being really super, I don't know, on fire, or like really going for it for like the week after that camp. Being like, I'm gonna read my Bible, and I'm gonna tell everyone. Like, I remember having a few train journeys home and being like, I got to tell you about Jesus, man. And then, and I was like really zealous for it.
But like almost like a new. That's interesting because you went from almost that being almost ashamed of it to like a new found pride, proud,
completely,
which is amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
But inevitably, those weeks of camp are very like almost their own bubble where no one's like, there's no embarrassment, there's nothing that.
Yes.
And then you get back to school, and again.
You take that energy into the school environment, and it's a different.
And it feels like, oh, this this is weird again now, and it would tail off, and I'd just go back to living these kind of two lives again. And I think just over time, I realized that was the case, and I started living out my own faith and joining my own Christian communities, and kind of engaging in a less ashamed way. Like as I got towards college, and I started going out with a Christian girl. We had a long distance relationship. She was in Luton and I was in Colchester, and we would like spur each other on, and like it was a relationship that was first built on our faith before, like my previous relationships had just been based on kind of young love, whatever. With awkward young love on my part, I have to say. But yeah, so kind of continued on really, and then just grew deeper and deeper and deeper, and to some extent, I think I stayed in that bubble. Like when I went to university, I was part of a church and what's called a Christian Union, which is like a sort of university organization.
Them at our uni. So I went to uni in Bath. Where else did you study?
I went to De Montfort University in Leicester, which is how I ended up here.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. No, I was in Bath, but no, I remember the Christian Union there, and then obviously there's two unis there, a bit like similar with Leicester. You got De Montfort, then like Uni of. Is it Uni of Leicester? I guess. Yeah, similar with us. So
they don't say Uni of Leicester at Leicester Uni. They say Uni of. I'm like, way to make me feel bad about going to the Poly. On the road.
No, because I was at Bath Uni, and then there's obviously Bath Spa.
Bath Spa. Yeah, we don't talk about them. Yeah.
Do you go to Uni of or?
Yeah. Oh, is it Uni of? I go to Bath Spa.
but no, so the Christian Union, I remember them like during freshers and the presidents, and I lived with. I had a housemate. I'm still quite good friends with him now. Who's quite religious, and he kind of. Through him, I kind of was my first exposure, I guess, to someone really living in faith, if you know what I mean. Because I'm religious. That's really cool. Because through school, like there might have been people at school in my class, and I'm sure there were, but never really had a chance to speak to someone about it. And maybe because we were younger at school, and
for sure.
by the time you're at uni, people are kind of that. You meet people. It's how you doing? For me, it's always what football team do you support? That's always like the first question.
Nice.
But he also really was into his football, so we would spend time going to the football, and then obviously because of the faith, I would kind of learn a bit about that. And, it was cool.
Amazing.
Really
nice.
Cool.
Yeah. So I guess to answer your question, that over the years has become more and more of a rock for me, and it's what I base my life on, and the reason we stuck around in Leicester is because we joined a church. And now, just in January, I don't do things by halves. I just do everything at once. So, as well as starting a new cafe, we've also we moved about 3 years ago onto a fairly deprived estate in. So we used to go to a pretty middle class church, like lots of students, lots of kind of young professionals, and absolutely loved it. And then that church, a particular family in that church. Really felt a need to what's called plant a church, or like set up a new church in an area that didn't have one really, and there was a real need there, and often the poorest in society and those with the most need, it's very easy for a big church to kind of send a load of people to another nice place and set up a new thing that basically looks the same. For us, we wanted to do it differently, so we moved to this place called Esmonsel to set up a church, and we just launched. So we lived there for 3 years before launching, and we've just launched back in January. So it's very, very rough and ready, very simple, very messy in some ways, but a lot of fun. So we're proud of that.
So you've got that alongside kind of the cafe. So, but I think that's amazing and it's different. Like my passion, as I say, mine isn't say religion, but coffee is a big passion for me. Like doing this podcast, even like having open, honest, vulnerable conversations. Like even like yourself, you probably coming on to this, you maybe didn't think we'd go into faith. We thought it might just mean about the coffee, but
I thought it
love,
might get mentioned, but yeah, no, no.
yeah, like I
Well,
love
I can't really get away with having a cafe called Cafe 55 without explaining why it's called
explaining it.
that.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but I love that because it's showing who you are, and you're
Yeah.
kind of acting on your purpose through your passions. So the passions,
Mm,
maybe your passion for your faith, and you've got, and then like
yeah, definitely.
coffee and hospitality, and kind of bringing them
Oh my
together.
goodness.
And
Yeah,
so
totally.
that's amazing, and
Yeah.
I'm excited to see it. Obviously, I'll
And
have
I
to come
think,
up when it opens.
yeah.
I'll have to definitely
Ah, you are
pop up.
always welcome.
Yeah,
Yeah, the first coffee's on me. Um, yeah. Well, I guess just to kind of round off the cafe, what it
mm,
exists for is it's a cafe and community hub, right? So it exists to offer hospitality, welcome,
yeah,
but also half the cafe. The way we've designed the building
mm,
is because it was built from it used to be a sports pavilion, funnily enough, for like Saturday Sunday football.
okay, nice.
We got the lease for 125 years, so who knows? I might still be there. And uh, we've renovated it into this absolutely stunning space with the way it's been designed is so that the rooms can be split off to be
Yeah,
used for community stuff. So we have a communities worker
yeah,
who essentially we form partnerships with charities. We run things like I don't know, everything from a toddler story time through to like tech support for folks
nice.
who need
Yeah,
help
yeah,
setting up an email address. We're working with people like Age UK and Loros, who are like a hospice charity. We've got kind of counselling therapy room.
yeah,
There's all sorts going on, as well as a beautiful kitchen and delicious coffee and
yeah.
yeah, all
It's
sorts of
exciting.
stuff. So yeah, so we're literally like as we speak, we're about a week off
Yeah.
launching, less than a
Okay.
week off
So by
launching.
the time this comes out, it will have launched. Say that
Crumbs, it will have done.
today.
And the coffee machine's going in tomorrow. I had my worktop put on the
Mm,
coffee counter today,
yeah,
and I
yeah.
was absolutely terrified because a week ago we measured it all out, and I said I want holes there and there and there, and
And it's your
it
name.
arrived.
Will it align? And
Yeah,
yeah.
and the funny because in my previous job, I often helped people set up cafes. That was because we were like their initial coffee supplier. So you'd often
Yes.
be there
Yeah.
at that stage when they were making those big
Mm,
decisions, and I was always nervous for them, particularly when I had some responsibility in it. But
yeah.
this
Yeah.
was a different ballgame when those guys arrived today with this worktop, and I'm like, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
But it went in. It looks beautiful. I kept stroking my hand along it at the end of the day.
No, no. You mean you're like, wow. It's because I guess this is
Yeah.
really the point where it goes from an idea and what you've thought about to really
Oh
becoming
man.
real. Yeah.
Man, seriously. And that excellently goes on to what I was saying earlier about this idea of the working genius, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I'll try and be brief about it. But my wife works for a charity. She works for a charity called Safe Families, who
Mm,
support families who are at risk of going into the care system.
yeah.
So she's a fundraiser for them, and she was introduced to this idea of the working genius. It's an American guy, I think, called Pat Lincioni or something like that. Anyway,
Mhm.
the idea is it's a kind of essentially it's a personality test, but
Yeah.
specifically tailored towards projects, teams, and workplace. But I
Mm,
found it helpful across all of life, right? So
yeah. Yeah.
the idea is that there are six things, okay,
Mhm.
and the reason it's called working genius is because two of those things will be your geniuses, right? The things that you get energy from, that you thrive on doing,
Yeah. Yeah.
that if you were doing just those things, you would be absolutely flying, right?
Mm,
Two of those things, though, are your frustrations, the things you find the
mm,
hardest to do, the things that you don't get energy from at all, the things that
yeah.
really drain you, right? And then the two in the middle are like what's called competencies. So things that
Yeah. So you,
you're good at doing and they're fine and you're pretty good, but they wouldn't, if you were just doing that, you might eventually burn
yeah.
out.
Like you wouldn't, or like they wouldn't get you out of bed in the morning. You wouldn't be like
100%.
excited about them, and
Yes. Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah,
what
exactly that.
your geniuses are. I guess it's like your why.
100%.
They're like your. This is
Yeah,
why I do
your
what I do.
why, yes, to
Yeah.
quote
Yeah.
Simon Sinek. Yeah.
Yes.
So the six things, it spells out widget. You've got wonder, inventor, discerner, widget, galvanizer, enabler, and tenacity, right? So wonder being the person who's like, I wonder why this glass is the way it is, or like I wonder how things could be different. So if you're the kind of person who's at work going always thinking, oh, the way we do things just isn't right, I wish there was a new way of doing it, right?
Yeah.
Inventor is the person who literally comes up with new ideas all the time. The way I find most helpful to think about it is, are you a person who is happy to get somebody else's spreadsheet and work on it, or you're like, right, screw it up, throw it in the bin, start fresh, create new things from nothing. Then there's the discerner, the person who takes those ideas and goes, yeah, great idea, but how does that actually look in real life? The galvanizer is the person who's like gets the team on board with this new idea. What have I got to? Galvanizer. Enabler is the person who goes, give me stuff to do, I'm just going to do it. Like, I'm just going to crack on and get stuff done. I'm here to serve, I'm here to help. And then the tenacity is the person who goes, where's the end point? That's the goal. What tasks do I need to do to get there? Okay, and they just sit down every day and go, task, done, task, done, until they reach the end, and they just somehow get to the end. Those people baffle me. I don't know how you do it. I don't know what you would identify with, but
yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting there. I think I'm definitely a wonder. The first one.
Yeah, me too.
Sometimes I can stray too much into the big picture stuff, and my manager has to rein me back into like the tenacity and say, look, you've got all these big ideas, but they're only ideas if no action happens. So I need like that enabler alongside me to be like, yeah. It's interesting though, just even now having this conversation, it makes you think about it. So yeah, it's definitely one for me to check out. I'll definitely.
I do. The amazing thing is, and what I really like about it is, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't be good at all the things. It's just where you get your energy and strength from. But also it gives permission. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, it's fine. It's interesting because obviously I work full time alongside doing this whole Instagram cappuccino. Well, initially I've just been reviewing some cafes, and suddenly it's grown to there's a bit of a clothing range which I don't really push so much anymore. But then we've got our coffee with Jericho Coffee Traders.
Amazing.
I've got this podcast now. I sponsor a local football team.
So you've got a whole ecosystem, Hans.
It's the whole thing, which is happening and kind of growing organically. What's nice is I never had a plan for what it was going to be, which is amazing. But my partner sometimes she's like, because I've suffered with burnout before. It's kind of how I had my breakdown and my introduction to mental health was I was just not taking care of myself, and self-care is something I do want to touch on before we finish.
Definitely.
But I say there's certain things, and I think doing like this podcast or when I'm putting out some content for Cappuccino or giving something and raising awareness of that cause, it gives me energy. So if I had a bit of a stressful day at work, like today was a pretty stressful day, but I was like, I'll be able to sit down, have this amazing conversation, and just switch off from that. And actually, those things, if I won't worry about it, like in a year, like even a week's time, some of the things I was stressed about today won't matter. But something I might take from this conversation when it goes out, like adds value. So this like gives me a podcast, and that's why even when I'm busy, I'm like, I want to make time for this.
That's great.
See how it grows, man. So
I'd be really interested to know what your like pairing was. The really freeing thing for me was I would always get so frustrated at the fact that I could start something and be super excited about it, but I really struggled just to see it through and to finish it, and to go, or just to do the same thing every day.
I was always that's when the discipline comes in. It's like people say that discipline is almost stronger than motivation, because if you're only doing it when you're motivated, it might not get done. Discipline is when you do it even when you're not motivated.
Completely. But there's this, and that's so true. I think the freeing thing about this, the Working Genius, is that you, it's okay if you're not like. It was the first time I kind of realized I'm not built to be the person who just cracks on and does these things. It's why, like, leading up to the opening of the cafe, I found really challenging, like healthy challenging, but challenging because I'm not a project manager or someone who can just, like, I have literally got an enormous task list to just get done. And I find it really hard to do that. And my I find when I am procrastinating,
Yeah.
I don't procrastinate away from work. I procrastinate into, oh, what about this potential thing that we could do, or this potential thing we
I
could
can
do, or
relate
like,
so much to
and
that. I
just
can relate
like,
so much. I just find new
yeah,
ideas to stop me doing the tasks
yeah,
that it just needs me to just focus and just
yeah,
do.
yeah, yeah,
But I
totally,
don't find it energizing. It's just it needs to
yeah,
get done.
of
Yeah, yeah.
course,
I can relate.
and when you can lean in your workplace, at home, whatever, when you can lean into things that you really are strong in, and you have people around you who fill the gaps where you're
Yeah.
not. So it really changed how I hired for
Mm. I
like
was going to say,
deputy
I guess that's
managers and
how
everything like
you,
that.
you almost want to make sure within a team you have
Yeah,
all of those covered by someone's
absolutely. Yeah,
genius. And then that's how a team
yeah,
comes together because
yeah,
even
yeah,
when
yeah,
you're looking at a certain project, you maybe don't have to even go off job title. It's
yeah,
who do I know is going to be the person who will keep this on track? Who's going to keep us
100%.
galvanized when we're
Yeah,
on a bit of a tough day? So
yeah.
yeah,
So
sounds great.
even this last week, I've got 2 employees now, and they are incredible, and they've just been like, "What do you need me to do?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't know. Here's some things to," and they just went on, cracked on, and did them, and took them off my plate. It's amazing. So
Yeah,
yeah,
amazing, man. And no, I'm really
I
excited.
rambled on.
No, it's great. It's great. It's as I say, by the time this comes out, then that will be there. So is it Cafe 55? Did you say is that?
Cafe 55. It's
Yeah.
in a place called Thurmby, which is a village just outside Leicester. It's in a
Hmm.
park called Manor Field Play Park,
Yeah.
um,
Amazing.
and yeah, open Tuesday to Sunday. Get down there.
Look forward to
Beautiful
seeing how it
food,
all.
beautiful coffee. It's going
Yeah.
to be great.
Amazing. And yeah, so as I said, self-care is something that I kind of
Mm.
would be interested to hear. It was really nice actually earlier on, going quite a bit back when you said you were working at the chain shop and then you would just go
Yeah,
get your sandwich, just sit and have that kind of headspace.
yeah,
So I guess hospitality can be busy. As much as you
yep,
say
yeah,
you're
yeah,
a people person,
mm.
sometimes it's maybe nice to have that time alone.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah. Oh, of
again, I don't
course,
want
yeah,
to put words in your mouth, but what's the self-care look like to you, I guess? What would you say is
yeah.
your self-care?
Well, I suppose in first of all, my wife would tell you that I'm not great at it. I've got better over the years, but I'm not great at it. Um, uh, in the cafe, I guess to use a small example, one of
Yeah,
the things I'm most excited about, which I really missed actually, not working in hospitality, and particularly not being the opener in hospitality,
mm,
is as in the person who opens the shop, right?
yeah,
Um, is getting there early, dialing in the coffee, getting everything ready to serve, and then making yourself a coffee, going and sitting in the cool of the morning and just
yeah.
either headphones in or um, and just drinking a coffee in the morning. And what people often, lots of people say to me, I'd love to open a coffee shop, right? And I speak to so many people who have this dream of owning a coffee shop because it feels like this really romantic idea. And I think it's because people enjoy going to coffee shops. And so
Yeah,
the idea of owning one, it's just like, well, I could just do that all the time. Sadly, it's not as simple as that.
yeah.
There are moments few and far between, but there are moments of joy and enjoyment in there. I mean, it's all enjoyable. You know what I mean? There are moments of stillness.
I know what you mean. Moments of
Yeah,
stillness in
yeah,
the kind of the hustle, and it's busy, but you're
yeah,
kind of, I guess you're getting that maybe that pleasure and that enjoyment through
yeah,
others experiencing that and knowing that
yeah,
you're
yeah, yeah, yeah,
providing a space to do that
yeah,
is
yeah.
really cool.
And Hans, we live in a world, a culture that is so hurried, don't we?
Mm.
Like everything is a rush.
Yeah,
Like we talked about us meeting on Instagram. I mean, we just cannot deny that Instagram is built. Like the very fact that reels exist is
yeah.
because people
Shorts,
want the
even now
next
on
thing.
YouTube,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
everything to this short
yeah.
format. Like
We
I'll
want
watch
it
it
straight away,
for 20
straight
seconds,
away.
scroll. Yeah,
Yeah. And how often do you have like literally I might be playing a video game or the microwave's on, heating my son's milk up or something, and I'm like immediately on the phone just like this,
yeah,
da, 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 and then put it down, and then I'm back. We only have to look at our screen time to see how much we're bombarded by stuff, and everything is a hurry. Like
it
if
is.
you
Yeah,
if you were in traffic and there was 3 lanes of traffic, I mean,
mm,
I don't know how often this happens to you, but you're on the motorway, there are 3 lanes of traffic, and one gets slightly shorter. You move into that lane, don't you? because we're in a hurry to get the place we're getting,
Yeah.
and we hate waiting in
Mm.
lines, and like you
Yeah.
feel awkward
Or
now.
people almost.
Yeah.
I'm getting better at it because actually I love, and this is interesting, going almost when I'm in a car, when I'm on a journey, if I'm listening to just music or the radio, or what I love is the fact that there's nothing else I could be doing. So I'm just driving. So I actually really love a long drive.
Yeah, me too.
Because it's like, otherwise, like you said about that busyness, I'm the same, and I think it's why it works sometimes. I'm not maybe the most focused because I've got all these ideas. I've got such a busy mind. I just do. But it's nice when I'm driving that I feel like there's nothing else I should be doing. I don't have to check my phone. I don't have to answer my calls.
Yeah.
My car's old that I can't even take calls through the car. That's how old my car is.
I wish I had that. Yeah.
I like that because I'm still no, I'm driving, so I'm not available.
Yeah.
But no, I know what you mean. And sometimes people will take an alternative route, even if it's a bit longer, to stop them sitting in traffic because they're like, I want to be moving. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm guilty of that. Like,
it's like an analogy. They would rather be busy rather than just. Sometimes you actually can get to a goal or just achieve more by just being consistent and steady on one path rather than your energy just going all over the place.
Yeah. And you've got this, like, you know, every podcast I listen to, it seems to be like, I'm an absolute sucker for like productivity hacks and like a lot of my work time procrastinating is spent, how can I be doing my job more productively? It's no, Josh, just do the job. But you know, these podcasts where you're listening and they're like, oh yeah, I get up at 4 a.m. and then I go to the gym and I do this thing, and I'm like, and then by 6 a.m. I'm ready to go, and then I do my. You've probably seen that, like it's almost like a memed thing of like, your day is 24 hours, mine's this many hours because I have 3 days in one. It's like,
I've already done.
It's like, and everything is hurried, right? And so the best moments of self-care I get are when I am forced to stop and I literally can't move anymore, and I just stop. And whether that is sitting and listening, walking in nature, being just breathing. I found a really beautiful habit at the moment, which I'm really enjoying, which is so my general routine in the morning is my son wakes me up by shouting, "Daddy!" So I get up bleary-eyed at whatever time it is, 5, anytime from 5 o'clock onwards, and we go downstairs and he watches TV for a bit with what he calls cereal snack, which is just like dry cereal in a bowl. And I think up to last year, I spent a lot of that just like doing things and like making a coffee, but also like scrolling on my phone and just.
What you mean is you're up, so you feel like you've got to be. Doing.
And then I was looking for time in my day when I could just stop, and then I thought that's probably the one time he isn't vying for my attention, or work isn't vying for my attention, or you know, all these things are fine. It's just that's the time when he's occupied, like my wife's in bed, you know, I've got time. So now I've got this really enjoyable routine, which I'm really loving, which is he gets set up, I get get his show on, I go and make myself a coffee and take my time over it, and then sit down. We've just moved my favorite chair, which I've been trying to like use, but it's never been in a room that I actually use it, so it ends up being a washing chair. You know, like a laundry chair. So
like
we've
my
just moved.
Exercise bike ended up.
Yeah, nice. Stick the coffee down and just sit and be and read and pray and think and nothing else.
Nice.
And no one wants your attention, and no one is going to call you at that time. And it feels like I'm really enjoying that at the moment, because it's, but also not putting pressure on that. I think previously I'd have said like, oh, I need a like a bit of a Christian-y phrase, but so this like idea of a quiet time where you like set aside time in your day, and it's really important. But to spend time with God and in your thoughts and whatever. And I think previously I was quite almost like legalistic about it, like quite rules heavy on it. Like, no, I've got to read a chapter, or I've got to do
I know what you
10
mean.
minutes
You'd
of this or
almost,
whatever.
if you didn't get around to doing that, you'd then not punish yourself, but you beat yourself up a bit.
Yeah, I'd feel guilty and punish myself.
Yeah.
And now, often what happens is I sit down, the coffee goes down,
Yeah.
I open the book, and then my son's like, "I want breakfast." It's like, or I want to play with trains or something. And at first it was a bit jarring, and then I thought, there's no like rules here. I just put the book down and carry on, and I'm trying as best as I can to do it in a guilt-free way. Like, oh, I only read a few words today. That's fine. Or I had to stop. That's fine.
No, I think that's amazing.
It's more the rhythm.
Yeah.
And I think in very brief terms, to answer your question about self-care, I think it's about rhythms. Because it's like rhythms in music are the thing that holds it together, isn't it? It's the thing that, unless you listen to Jacob Collier, in which case it's all over the place, but it's this thing that you repeat and you repeat and you repeat, and it holds everything together. And it's not that one moment is particularly impressive or, life-changing, but it's the formative rhythms that we exist in.
It's like the little things.
Change it.
If you make sure you're drinking enough water, you're giving yourself time for yourself, like you said, that reflection, and actually you realise that they then help you manage the difficult, challenging situations more. Or I guess it's amazing that you maybe like start your day, the working day, but already you've had a bit of time for yourself or with your little one, like you've had some time for the family and what the really important things. But I'm wary. I mean, I feel like we could just go on, and we could just.
Man, I could talk. I could talk to you for hours.
I've really enjoyed it. I've genuinely.
Thanks. Me too.
It's been amazing. And
I was honestly, I got back from work super late, and I was like, I literally put my son to bed, and I was guzzling down my dinner. I was like, I've got to do this podcast. I said before we started recording, the irony of talking about self-care on a podcast, where I'm like, right, let's go, get on the pod, get my microphone ready, let's go. And then, but I've so enjoyed it, and it's been really refreshing. So
it's been perfect. And before we finish, I just want to ask one question, which I do ask everyone, and that is, what does happiness mean to you?
To me, I think happiness feels like community. It's a massive part of it. Whether that is, this incredible coffee community where the more you engage with it, the more you know people, those who are around you to lift you up and support you, and who you can serve and they can serve you, and that. And as contentment as well, something I really struggle with as someone who's always thinking, how could this be better? What's different? Like the moments I think I feel the most happy are the moments I feel most content in what God has given me, what I have, what I can give, and I'm not striving for the next, to try and be impressive, It's why probably partly because I don't have the tenacity to post on Instagram every day, but I think part of that is going, some days I'm like, I don't know if you feel this, I haven't posted on Instagram in so long, and are people going to see it and think, oh, I've not seen you around in a while? But other times I'm like, I don't need to prove myself to the public, whatever.
No, I think that when I first started, actually, I was really quite a bit like you mentioned with when you had time and you'd almost beat yourself up if you didn't, like, because especially I mentioned, it was, so it's funny how I look at where I am now to where I was 5 years ago when I started this page, and it's worlds apart, which is amazing. And part of that is the community that I've found a space, whether that's a digital space but I've found digital connections that have become real life connections. But it's like a space that's allowed me to be vulnerable, allowed me to be myself, allowed me to say, it's okay if I don't have the best day every now and again, but yeah, but I used to be like that. I need to post this many times a day, and I need to make sure I'm
Yeah.
getting engagement. But now I'm like,
Yeah.
it will happen. Like sometimes I'll go a week without a post. It's only now I
Mm.
feel if there's something I really want to share, and for me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and then
Oh man, don't worry. The last thing I posted was probably about 3 months ago. I'm
yeah,
like,
soon I'm sure there'll be some Cafe 55 posts. I'll say it again.
of course, yeah. But
Yeah,
we're always like, I guess we're self-centered enough to think that people are waiting for us to post, but that's probably not true.
no,
It's
but
more, it's
like
more like as soon as you post something and people engage with it even a little bit, and unfortunately,
yeah,
Instagram's not built for those who don't post very often, as we
no,
know.
literally like you said with the short things, but
Yeah.
especially spaces like that, and you talk about community, it's word of mouth.
Yeah.
People will share it themselves. Let's go here. And
Yeah.
but no, anyway, I said we'll
Yeah.
just finish with one question, and we've ended up
We've rambled on.
rambling on.
No
But
worries.
I think we'll call it a day there.
Call it a
Really
day.
appreciate your time, Josh. I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens. But I love even from hearing this the why behind it and the fact
Mm.
that it's you're not just there to serve drinks and you're literally
Mm.
I think I said it previously, but I'll say it again, like acting on your purpose through your passions and bringing them together and allowing
Mm.
people in your own local community to feel
Mm.
that as well. So yeah, should be
Absolutely.
super proud, mate. I mean, it's not started yet, so maybe I'll retract that when I come and visit now, Jay. But no, we should be.
When you taste my coffee.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this latest episode of Flat Whites and Insights, and I really hope you gained something from that conversation. I know I certainly did. It would mean a lot if you can like and subscribe on whatever platform you may be watching or listening on, but also if you head over to Instagram and give me a follow at Cappuccino. This is the best place to contact me, but also see the latest developments on the platform as we look to increase awareness of mental health through my passions for coffee and football. In addition, if you've heard something that you can relate to or you want to talk about a little bit more, feel free to message me on that platform. But also, if you fancy coming on yourself and having a conversation, then do let me know, because I'm always keen to connect with new people and get insights into other areas and other passions and other challenges that I might have no experience of myself. Thanks again, and I really hope you tune in for the next episode. Take care of yourselves. I've been Hans. Thank you.